Imagine the world as your oyster, a vast, unexplored territory waiting to be discovered and claimed. Such was the mindset during the colonization era. But have you ever wondered how this period affected Asia? In the broadest sense, the colonization era refers to the period from the 15th to the 20th century, when European powers, driven by the lure of wealth, power, and religious zeal, embarked on voyages of discovery and conquest. This era was marked by significant changes in global politics, economics, and culture. In the heart of this narrative, we find Asia, a continent rich in resources and culture. Major colonizing powers such as Britain, France, Spain, and the Netherlands were drawn to Asia's promise of wealth and strategic advantage. These powers established colonies, reshaping the landscape of the continent and influencing its trajectory in the process. The colonization era was a time of exploration, exploitation, and transformation, especially for Asia. As the sun rose on the colonization era, Asia's fate was about to take a dramatic turn. In the dawn of the 15th century, the first European colonizers set their sights on Asia. The Portuguese were the pioneers of this new age, led by the intrepid explorer Vasco da Gama. After navigating the treacherous waters around the Cape of Good Hope, da Gama and his fleet arrived in the Indian subcontinent in 1498. This marked the beginning of the European presence in Asia. These early explorers were driven by the promise of exotic spices, precious metals, and other riches. But they were also motivated by a desire to spread Christianity, a mission which often brought them into conflict with the indigenous cultures they encountered. The initial interactions between the colonizers and the indigenous people of Asia were fraught with tensions. Language barriers, cultural differences, and competing interests often led to misunderstandings and conflicts. Despite these challenges, the colonizers pressed on, establishing trading posts and colonies throughout Asia. Over time, other European powers followed in the footsteps of the Portuguese. The Spanish, the Dutch, the British, and the French all sought to establish their own spheres of influence in Asia. They built forts, introduced new crops and technologies, and reshaped the political and social landscapes in ways that would forever change the face of the continent. Yet it's important to remember that this was not a one-way process. The indigenous people of Asia were not merely passive recipients of European influence. They resisted, adapted, and in some cases, even integrated the newcomers into their societies. They also influenced the colonizers in profound ways, from food and fashion to art and philosophy. The dawn of colonization in Asia was a complex and turbulent period. It was a time of exploration and discovery, of conflict and adaptation, of exploitation and resistance. It was a time when empires were built and cultures were transformed. The dawn of colonization in Asia was a time of change, with repercussions that echo to this day. As the colonization era reached its zenith, the face of Asia was irrevocably altered. The height of colonization in Asia was a period marked by substantial changes in governance, society, culture, and economy. The once self-governing nations were now under the yoke of foreign powers, with their own systems and structures replaced by those of the colonizers. The British, the French, the Dutch, the Spanish, and the Americans, among others, established their own forms of administration, often enforcing their own laws and systems of justice, which were foreign and sometimes harsh to the local populace. The impact on the culture was profound. The colonizers introduced their languages, religions, and customs. Schools were established, where the colonial languages were taught, and the local languages often sidelined. Christianity spread rapidly in many regions, competing with, and in some cases, suppressing the local religions. Yet, in this cultural exchange, the Asian cultures also influenced the colonizers, leading to a fascinating blend of East and West. The economic landscape was also transformed. The colonizers exploited the rich resources of the Asian lands, establishing plantations, mines, and factories. Trade flourished, but it was largely one-sided, benefiting the colonizers more than the colonized. The local economies were reshaped to serve the economic interests of the colonizers, often to the detriment of the local populace. Yet, in the face of these sweeping changes, the Asian people did not remain passive. There were struggles, revolts, and resistance movements. The colonized people demonstrated remarkable resilience and resourcefulness, fighting to preserve their ways of life and regain their freedom. From the Sepoy Mutiny in India to the Boxer Rebellion in China, from the Philippine Revolution to the Vietnamese fight against the French, these struggles were testament to the indomitable spirit of the Asian people. The height of colonization in Asia was a period of turmoil and transformation, forever altering the continent's landscape. The scars of this era still remain, but so does the resilience, the resistance, and the rich cultural exchange that it spurred. As the dust settled on the colonization era, Asia was left with a legacy that continues to shape its future. The aftermath of colonization in Asia is a complex and multifaceted story. This era has left an indelible mark on the continent, and its echoes can still be heard today. The political landscape of modern-day Asia has been heavily shaped by its colonial past. Many of the borders we see today were drawn by colonial powers, often ignoring ethnic and cultural realities on the ground. These arbitrary boundaries have been a source of conflict and tension in the region for decades. Economically, colonization had a profound impact. Many Asian economies were reoriented to serve the needs of their colonial masters, often at the expense of local populations. While some regions experienced economic growth and development as a result of colonial infrastructural projects, others were left with economies that were overly dependent on a single crop or resource, leaving them vulnerable to market fluctuations. The cultural impact of colonization is perhaps the most visible. From language to architecture, the influence of colonial powers can be seen across the continent. Many Asian countries have adopted Western-style education systems and legal codes, yet at the same time local cultures have also resisted and adapted, creating unique hybrid forms that blend traditional and foreign elements. Yet the legacy of colonization in Asia is not solely one of victimhood or oppression. It is also a story of resilience and resistance. Many Asian nations have used their colonial past as a springboard to assert their own identity, forging a path towards self-determination and independence. In the end, the legacy of colonization in Asia is a complex tapestry, woven from threads of political, economic, and cultural change. It is a story of upheaval and transformation, of loss and gain. It is a story that continues to unfold as Asia navigates its way in a post-colonial world. The aftermath of colonization in Asia left a profound legacy, shaping the continent's destiny and leaving an indelible mark on its history.